Lifeboat Live. We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Good evening, everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville. This is the Lifeboat. Appreciate your patience, everybody. It was probably a live stream that you saw first and jumped on. Here's what's been going on. Depending on what part of the country you're in, you're probably aware of the fact that we have a really good storm that's hitting many different parts of the U.S. And it kind of overrided. It was kind of an override to what Mark was doing to try to get us up and running. So he called me and said, we probably need to go old school on this, which I did. I set it up, got ready to go old school. And then right around the time that I was ready to roll, Mark called me and said, hey, we've got this thing working. So we jumped on there at the last moment, and here we are. So I appreciate the patience of everybody involved. It has been a great day for the lifeboat. It really has. There's been just been a lot of people that that reached out. Tommy, your audio is really low tonight. I'll try to speak up. Is anyone? I got a 5x5. Awful Mark, what are we doing here? Let's see. Buffering here. Maybe some storms in Florida. There seems to be storms everywhere, people. If I can get a 5x5, if we are not getting this, then we'll try to maybe fix it. But I don't know. All right, we're gonna roll with it until I see otherwise. So maybe I will sit a little closer and talk a little louder. How would that be? Anyway, it was a great day for the lifeboat. There's so many people that that reached out today. In so many different ways. It's humbling that things are happening the way that they're happening. I am froze. Video is frozen, just buffering issues. All right, good. All right, then let's roll. As you know, people, I'm on vacation. I'm visiting family in Florida, and it's given me an opportunity to relive a chunk of my past as I catch up the people that I love on what has been happening with me. And I'll be honest with you, number one, it's been cathartic. It really has to sort of relive it now that it is truthfully page 2 and page 3 stuff. If you're brand new to the lifeboat, you'll often hear me refer to myself as page 2 Tommy or page 3 Tommy because of how I redesigned myself. I honestly did it on a piece of paper, and the page 2 Tommy was was a guy that had some serious issues. I used to say he was a guy that wasted his life, but you know what? I didn't. And last night we talked about that on the live feed. If you missed last night's live feed, shame on you. Go back there and watch it. I promise you will not regret it. It was a great live feed, not just subject matter, but all of the interaction that was taking place with people in the live chat. It has really, it's really sort of taken shape in the last 2 weeks. It really has been amazing what's been happening here at the Lifeboat. But today, people, what I wanted to talk about was addiction in general, right? The very oftentimes, if you start to think about addiction, and I said, what is the opposite of addiction? Most people say sobriety, and simply put, that's just not at all what it is, right? The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of using might be sobriety, right? The opposite of being inundated with chemicals is chemical free. But the opposite of addiction is connection. Make no mistake about it. The opposite of addiction is connection. And what we mean by that is, living the life of an addict. I don't care how you do it. If you're an alcoholic and you don't drink alone, you go out every single night and you do it in pubs or you do it in nightclubs and there's 5,000 people there, there's still no connection. Real connections don't take place when you're drugging, when your brain and all of the facilities that you have are being dulled with drugs or alcohol. There is no real connection. I had a whole host of people that I spent years with. And unfortunately, none of those relationships were real. When you build a relationship on drugs or the need to get drugs, what you have is just sort of like-minded individuals that are all suffering together, but there is no connection. And as you start to get sober, the faster you build connections, the faster you can do away with the cause, the root cause, of what it meant to be an addict. The faster you can start to lay new cable, new groundwork, new points of connection. And I'm not just talking about with people, right? If you're using, chances are every day of your life is very similar to the day before, especially, if depending on the drug of choice. But for, those of us that were opiate addicts, you really live Groundhog's Day, just like that film. You get up, you do the same thing day in, day out. I mean, where you steal or where you panhandle or whatever you're doing in order to get the money required to support that habit might change slightly, but you get up, you get your money, you go wait in a parking lot for the dope to be delivered, you fix, you feel better for 4 hours, and then you do it all over again. And the next thing you know, a decade has gone by. So when you get sober, the faster you get out of those habits, we've all heard the cliche a million times, right? What is the definition of insanity? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result. If you continue to hang out with the same people in the same places, doing the same things, the only thing you subtract from that is the fact that, well, I'm not doing the chemicals. It doesn't matter, people. You will. I promise you. The fastest way to build a rock solid recovery is to get as many points of connectivity as you possibly can. And I'm talking about things like clubs, things like organizations, reading books. Think of the things that you did while drugging. More importantly, think of the things you didn't do, right? Spending time with family, going to church. I'm not telling you, people, that you have to become a believer, right? We never tell anybody that. But if you're not going to, find a group of some kind. Now, the Lifeboat, great. You can come here and you can plug into this and it will give you an opportunity to discuss the things that are important about sobriety. But if this is the only thing you're going to do, people, I think you're dropping the ball. I really do. Reach back out to family members. Start communicating with people that you thought those bridges were burned. It will astound you how oftentimes things that we thought were over, or damaged beyond repair, they're waiting for that opportunity. Nobody hates you because you used. They hated the fact that you used. We say all the time here that it's important to hate the hate and not the hater. For the most part, people in the real world who are not in the same boat, people who have not walked a mile in our shoes, they don't hate you, right? They hated the behavior. They hated the fact that you were enslaved to a substance that was making the decisions for you. When you remove that substance and you can come and talk to people and say, you know what, that's in the past. It is, not only is it remarkable how much people are willing to give you that chance, but it is cathartic. And we talked about this at length on numerous videos. You can't show up day one and expect to be treated exactly as if nothing ever happened, right? If you think that is going to be the case, then don't yet reach out. For real, there are going to be questions that you need to answer. And if you don't understand that, people, then you really need to take a hard look at where your thought processes are, right? When you have spent 3 years, 5 years, 30 years doing drugs every day and living a specific lifestyle, when you turn over a new leaf, when you change from that page 2 individual to that page 3 individual, and you begin the process again of rebuilding those relationships, there are going to be a lot of questions. And just as importantly, there are going to be a lot of doubts. We talked about the different boxes. There's a video we did, I don't know, about a month ago, about how individuals are put into specific boxes, right? Guys are supposed to act a certain way. Women are supposed to act a certain way. And yeah, you can call them stereotypes. You can call them whatever you want. But what it really boils down to is there are certain characteristics that people assume that they can absolutely attribute to you based on you are what, right? If you're a doctor, there are certain attributes that people just kind of assume because you're a doctor. Well, if you're a drug addict, there are a whole series of things that people can assume, and they're not off base. These are not, built on, they're not there for no reason. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's good, but let's be really honest. What are the defining characteristics of a drug addict? They're dishonest, and the only thing important in their life is the drug. They're going to lie about the fact that they're on it. Make no mistake, they are going to lie about the fact that they're on it. So when you go back and you say, hey, I'm sober, there is going to be a period of time where they're cautious. If you can't understand that, then you're probably starting off this road to sobriety on the wrong foot. You have to realize exactly what it means when you say, I want to rebuild this relationship. I want this back. Well, when that happens, you need to put up with some slings and some arrows. And most of the time, it's not nearly as bad as you make it out to be in your head, right? Which is classic addict anyway. I don't know how many times Mark and I have talked about this. If you go to pick a prescription up and the pharmacy says the prescription's not here, a normal person goes, wow, I wonder if it didn't get called in or if they made a mistake. We go to instantly, oh, Lord, it's over, right? The doctor has decided they don't want to see me anymore. He lost his license. He got busted for selling dope. Like, you just had to create all of these ridiculous scenarios. Well, the same thing happens with everything. You start to make connections with family and friends from the past. And the first time they say anything that is this much out of kilter, our backs go up, right? We instantly start acting like, how dare you? People, that is the same defense mechanism we used the entire time we were using, right? So when you develop a new personality and you become a new creation and a sober person, you need to leave that in the past. If somebody says something that hurts your feelings, you got to do what? Think about it. How many times have we talked about this? You take a deep breath, because the first thing that's happening in your brain is your breath starts to change, right? You start breathing more shallow, you're gonna get a little sweat on the palms, right? All of these things start to happen. And your brain, which although it controls the eyes do not communicate with that part of the brain at all. So your brain, for all it knows, you're getting ready to get into a fist fight, because it's the same kind of things that happen. So if you buy into that, and if you allow the brain to do that, that's going to be the reaction. I mean, granted, it may only come out of your mouth, but you're going to go, what does that mean? And start gritting your teeth. And it's probably not the best way to rebuild a bridge. So instead, what do? You take a deep breath, right? You know why they tell you to count to 10? Because who counts to 10 while being chased down by a bear, right? Who stops what they're doing if they're getting ready to get into a fist fight? Who stops what they're doing and goes, I want to take a deep breath. now I'm going to count to 10. Well, your brain honestly does apparently this isn't a fight. And you can stop that process of the anxiety starting to take over the mind. People, you have to do this a lot while you're rebuilding bridges. The more you understand that this is going to happen before you start into the process, the better off that you're going to be. I hope this makes perfect sense. One of the other things you're going to find, I was talking to a friend of mine, about an hour ago. And this individual and I have a lot in common, right? Which happens very often with the people I speak to because we're all in the same boat, right? So this person has struggled with addiction, not the same drug, the previous drug of choice. Our previous drugs of abuse were different, but we both struggled in recovery. And we were sitting and talking about the normal things that happen in society that to the average person walking around are not a big deal. I mean, I could ask you to raise your hand, but from where I'm at, it would be a difficult thing to count the hands. My view is kind of, it's not, anyway. But if I ask for a show of hands, how many times have you been in a store and you get ready to go up to the checkout and the person in front of you is on their cell phone, right? And they're talking to somebody and they're not paying attention to anything that is going on. And in the process of doing this, they're adding 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes to your day. Behind them are 16 people in line. And then when they finally get up and they handle everything, the purse comes out and they start counting out quarters. Let's see, that's $1. And they start sliding it across and you think, I'm going to lose, right? Normal people are frustrated by that. Addicts lose their mind. We want what we want and we want it instantly. I think I've told this story before, but when I was incarcerated and I got out, they take whatever money you have left on your books, right? This is like the prison bank account. And whatever money you have left, they put onto a Visa card, like a prepaid Visa. And you don't leave that kind of a facility with a whole lot of faith in the federal government because they don't do anything right. So the first thing you want to do is get to an ATM machine, see if they actually put the money on this card, and then get it off as fast as possible because you just don't have a lot of trust, right? So this is what I did. I left, and I was in the special management unit, which is the ugliest part of the federal prison. This is a really dangerous, maximum security, violent kind of a place. And I walked out of this monochromatic environment where everything is either green or khaki. There's no color, there's no anything. And I got out into the real world, and within 20 minutes, I'm driving down the street and there's colors everywhere. Like I had not been in a vehicle moving, right, in years. And watching the stuff scream by on the side of the, out the windows, just watching the environment fly by at 60 miles an hour. I was getting sick to my stomach. This was really kind of a sensory overload. And we pulled over and I said, just let me get the money off this card. And I walked up to an ATM machine, which keep in mind, I had not used one in a very, very long time, but I went up and I'm putting the card in and I start putting in my number and I turned around and there was a man 6 inches behind me. I'm not exaggerating. This is not for the benefit of the story. The man was this far behind me. I could feel his breath on the back of my neck. And wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just standing there waiting for his turn. But I had just left an environment that would get you killed. Like I'm not even being, this would get you killed. You get 3 feet of your space. And the only time somebody enters that 3 feet of space is if a fist fight is about to break out. So because I am, brand new to sobriety and kicked back into the world and all of these things are happening, I'm not going to repeat what I said to this guy because I have rules about saying things like that on this channel. But suffice to say, I wasn't very nice. And I probably used some expletives, but I asked him if there was something very seriously wrong with him in terms of, his thought processes. I asked him, a few questions like, who do you think you are? And what do you think you're doing? And the person I was with at the time, who was my significant other, came up and said, "What are you doing? What is wrong with you?" I said, "What's wrong with me?
this guy is 6 inches behind me as I'm taking money out of this. Like it really kind of smells like the guy's trying to rob me. Like, to me, it made absolute sense why I would be incensed, truthfully bitter, angry at this whole situation. But to people that had not been in the same situation as me, I looked like a stone cold killer. Like there was just something wrong with me. Our responses to the things that happen in our lives, although they may make a ton of sense to us, don't make a ton of sense to the rest of the world. I hope this is making sense. Obviously, this is hyperbole. I'm using an example that is way over the top of the kind of things that most of us are probably dealing with. But you do understand where I'm going with this. Once you become sober, we expect things from society that are not very realistic. We expect people to understand that, you know what, we're a little on edge. This is my first day, or my first week or my first year trying to get through life being sober. And we kind of think somewhere in the back of our head that everybody ought to know that, right? They ought to treat us accordingly. The guy should cut me a little bit of slack. He should stand 5 feet behind me and understand that I just got out of a federal prison. He's like, don't kill him. It doesn't make any sense, right? It might make sense in my head, but it doesn't make sense in the real world. And as I said, an hour ago, I was talking to someone and we spent, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes talking about things that grind our gears, right? Things that, if you say common sense, right? What is common about common sense? There's nothing. It should be called uncommon sense, right? How about common courtesy? There's nothing common about courtesy these days. In the culture that we live in, courtesy is wildly uncommon, right? Okay, I promise you, we're hypersensitive to that in ways that other people aren't. Your patience level is about this big. If you're aware of that, then you're probably going to make allowances. Now, do you have to make allowances for the entire world? Probably not. You don't really need to be, you don't have to go out of your way to bend over backwards and be kind to every single person on the planet. It's not a bad idea, but you don't have to. But you damn well better do it to your family. And you better do it to your friends. And you better understand that when everything in life is grinding your gears, it's because you don't have any coping skills. It's because you spent most of your life buying coping skills by the gram or by the bottle. So now that you're in the real world and you're, real world, now that you're in the sober world and this is how you're living, know that there are things that are going to grind your gears and be aware of the fact that your response to them shouldn't be wildly over the top. Your response to that should be a little bit more on an even keel. Do you understand? How do you make that happen? Well, we talked about, taking a deep breath, counting to 10. The fastest way to make that happen is to become part of this society that grinds your gears. Capiche? Start getting points of contact immediately. Immediately. Don't take 9 months and then say, look, you know what? Look, I'm getting sober. So I'm not putting up with anything. For the next 9 months, I'm not talking to family. I'm not talking to friends. I'm not going out in public. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. You're not moving forward. And if you're not moving forward in this game, in this journey, what are you doing? You're moving backwards. There's no coasting in sobriety. There isn't. If you think you're coasting, you're relapsing. Believe that. If you're brand new to the lifeboat, the term relapse, when we use that term here, it doesn't mean getting high or getting loaded or drinking or doing whatever, right? That's using. Relapse is the process that gets you back to using. And relapses for some people take 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours. And for some people, a relapse can take 5 years. But when you start to backslide toward the mindset and the lifestyle that you lived while addicted, then you're in the process of relapse. So, we talked about perspective in the last few videos. And one of the things we talked about was self-awareness. There's a reason we beat this to death. If you aren't self-aware, if you're not paying attention to what is going on in your brain, if you're not paying attention to how much things are grinding your gears, how much things are bothering you, and all of those sort of doing a health and welfare check on your brain. If you're not taking a good look at what emotion is ruling the day, then you don't have any idea if you're succeeding or failing in this journey that we call sobriety. Again, it's the fastest way to work on this. Get around people that aren't users. For real, you will learn massive amounts from watching normal folk. I use air quotes, right? Normal folk. When you start to build bridges and when you start to make points of connection and you start to talk to people who are sober, you will start to see things that are dramatically different. Some of the things that we've done for so long that seem normal, right? When I was incarcerated, I didn't hear a sentence without an F-bomb in it for probably 8 years. I'm exaggerating, but not by much. You know, there's a handful of people in there that tried to communicate without cursing. I mean, a handful, right? Over the course of 8 years, you could count the number of people that were trying not to drop every foul word you could think of on one hand. You could easily count them on one hand. They would break up syllables, right? Unscreaming believable, right? They wouldn't even wait to curse. They had to, you got a 3-syllable word, you might get an F-bomb twice in that word. Is that normal behavior? I mean, I guess it depends on where you hang out. But if you've convinced yourself that that's normal behavior, then it's probably because you surrounded yourself with some people that weren't living, a sober and happy existence. That really is I have people all the time who say, what's the big deal, in terms of the cursing on the channel? Why is it that, you're going to throw somebody off here if they drop an F-bomb, or if they, first of all, they'll get a warning. I promise you, we don't just kill you for that. You get a warning. But the reason that we say that is, if you can't control your tongue, you think you can control your life? You want to curse your business completely. But on this channel, the whole purpose of the channel is to concentrate on living a life different than the life that you lived, right? I get up in the morning and what I do, people. What do? I make my bed. We talk about this all the time. I'm sure you're sick of hearing it. But it's a statement. I start my day with something that I never did when I was a user. And the simple act of making that bed says, this is how I'm starting my day. Because page 2 Tommy didn't do this once for any reason. That's good enough. It's a good enough reason to do it. I'm then going to brush my teeth. Because when you're a heroin addict, you might brush your teeth on a day that you got dope around in the morning. But if not, you're up and out the door, probably in the clothes you slept in. Okay? Well, that kind of crap is never going to happen to me again in my life. If that starts to happen, if I fall asleep in a pair of jeans, people, I'm in relapse, right? Whether I'm getting high or not. If I get up in the morning and I blow off making the bed and I blow off brushing my teeth, I'm in relapse. Doesn't mean I'm getting high, but I most assuredly am going this way instead of that way. Does that make sense? And the more points of connectivity, the more points of connection that I can develop, the better a chance I have of staying sober. When I say, hey, if you're new on the boat, I want you to reach out and I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me where you're at in life. What was your, the substance that you were abusing? Are you still abusing it? How long have you been sober? Blah, 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 right? Everything we want to know. We do that because we want to be able to help you, right? But for me, it's another point of connection. Do you understand this? You know how many people I care about? Okay. When I was a practicing addict, do you know how many people I cared about? This one. This was the only person that I cared about right here. This guy. And truthfully, the only thing I cared about was giving him dope. I didn't take care of myself, but there was one thing on this planet that mattered, and that was whether or not I got the next fix. So when I created page 3 Tommy, the more people that I care about, the better a chance I have of riding the rest of my life on this sober train or boat, as it were, right? The more people in my life that I truthfully care about, and I've said this on the channel before, this was not something I thought was going to happen. As much as I wanted to help people get sober, this part of it where there was back and forth and interaction? No, no, this was not part of the master plan. I think Mark probably knew this was going to happen and just like snuck it in on me, because having had his own channel and done, you know, live feeds and all that, he didn't tell me how this was going to work out, but he did really push that first live feed. You know what I mean? I'm thinking I probably got okie doked, but it's been the best thing that's ever happened. It really has. And this is the reason that Mark and I are discussing the, you know, as I said on the earlier live feed, the potential of just going live twice a day. Maybe not for the same length of time, but it's the reaction that we get from you all is overwhelming, right? Everybody says, yeah, right? I was always of the firm belief that if I went live in the morning, there would be 4 people on it. That's difficult. As much as you want to help everybody, to get up and do a live feed for 4 people is a struggle. However, the live feeds that we've done in the last 3 days were huge, right? So it has led me to believe that there is definitely reason to discuss this. And then when we asked for everybody's opinion, you all but threw stuff at me to make sure that I got the memo that you preferred us live to any other format. And every time we do one of these people, I'm not going to say I get more sober, right? You can't get more sober. It's like, you know, it's like getting, anyway. But what I get is more solid, truthfully. When I read the comments section and I see things and people are saying, you know, this helped me this much and I was working on this, or all of those things, that's not just the paycheck, people. It's the buzz. It's what really makes what we're doing worthwhile. It makes what we're doing exciting and important. You know what I mean? We're not. I'm not bagging on any other YouTube channel or anybody that does anything else, for real. But there's 57 million of them out there, right? Give or take. I don't think Mark and I will be eating any Tides pods on this channel. Mark, you gonna do one of those Tide Pod challenge? Maybe a spoonful of cinnamon? No? Okay. I did Sistroming. I ate that foul, disgusting fish on the promise that we would break 1,000, and we did. I don't regret that fish. And yeah, people, it will happen again. As soon as I can trick Jack into coming down here and doing it, coming down to Nevada to do it, we're probably going to do a Sistroming video. I'd really like to get Mark out there and torture both of them on the same day. But what we do here is different. And honestly, people, I find it very important. You know, you don't have to start a YouTube channel, but I would recommend really highly finding a couple of points of connection that you think are important. If it's coming here and lending support to people to help them stay sober, if you feel like, honestly, that's an important thing to do, then get your can here and do it. Because the more things that you can do in your life that really feel important to you, the better a chance you have of never going back. And if the goal isn't never going back, then you're on the wrong channel. For real. You can do the Tide Pod thing. But if your goal is to never get high again, well, then take some action. What's the opposite of addiction? Ask yourself this, for real. Don't take my word for it, but ask yourself this. What was the defining characteristic of you being high? Did you feel connected to a whole bunch of people and things? Boy, I didn't. I felt connected to heroin. You know, I felt connected to the needle. Ugh. It turns my stomach to say it. You know what I mean? It's rare that I get the bobblehead to go this way. But when I said needle, he went, oh, I wish you could have seen Mark. You know, people, please take the time. Take the time. Grab one of these things, right? And write on it. Make a list of the things you're doing to create points of contact. Create a list of the things that you're doing that feel important. If that list is this long, then you need to work on it. So I promise you, you're in relapse. If that list is this long, and I could throw out a few suggestions, but how about rebuilding bridges with your family? Put that down on the list, right? That's huge. Finding sober friends, put that down on the list. That's huge. Caring about those sober friends, reaching out to them, doing what you can to make sure that they stay sober, right? These are all really important things. And they're not the kind of stuff you would have done when you were using. You seeing where that's going? This list should be a bunch of things that you weren't doing when you were using. Those are new points of connection. And the more connected you are, the less a chance you got of going back. And that should be the overwhelming goal of everybody on deck, to not go back. People, we've gotten to that part of the show where I like to take out a telescope, right? No, on the nautical theme. This is where I like to turn the show over to my bobble-headed friend on the other side of the glass, who, I'll tell you something, saved this, because you know that if I had gone old school, excellent chance by now I would have figured out a way to turn this off. Yeah, I'm not gifted. But Mark, how are you today, my brother?
Oh, I'm living large, living large. I believe it or not, earlier when we were getting ready to ask you what you wanted the topic to be, I hadn't even booted up my computer because my power actually never went off. So I booted up my computer and I go to get on the internet and thanks for playing. It was one of those types of things. But that's what I've been dealing with today. That's it wasn't no big deal. I mean, we roll with it here and we get it figured out and we get on air and we're might be a couple minutes late sometimes, but guess what? That is life, You can actually even apply that to recovery. Sometimes you got to pivot. You got to move. You just don't have to, like Tommy said, if you're standing still, there's a problem. You have to be moving. If you don't move, what are you gonna do? I mean, think about it this way: if you're like walking forward, and say somebody's walking the opposite direction of you, and they reach out and they touch your shoulder, what happens? You just kind of move a little bit and you keep moving forward. If you're standing still and that same person's walking towards you and puts their hand out on your shoulder, what's going to happen? It's going to knock you backwards. It's the same thing. You got to be looking forward, and that's that's a simple physics when you're talking physical objects, but it applies to your brain too. It really does, and your mind thought. And I would say this, talking this whole subject, when I first got into recovery, I thought it was ridiculous, just to be honest with you. Why do I have to sit here and be, back when I was in school, setting goals, what do you want to be when you grow up? That's what it always reminded me of, right? When you're a kid, we all hated that when somebody said that to us. I mean, come on. What do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be a loser. Who's going to say that, right? But what I'm saying is the goal setting is critical to what we're doing. And why I say that is because if you don't have something to move towards, you're not going to move at all. You're just going to stand there. And then eventually you're going to get rolled backwards. And that's kind of what the whole purpose of that is. And then what it does is it actually will focus you in on a specific thing. And we all know that focusing on things during recovery is very, very important, because if you're focused on that, your brain cannot go back to the other stuff. Not until you quit the focus. You have to, not to say that you're not going to think about it. Triggers happen. We get all that. But the way to battle that is to, have a foundation build up of goals to look for. And something else has been really helpful for me is like, I started doing this probably about 5 years ago. Like when I would run into things, because you will in recovery, that it's a very, very negative thing, right? You remember how something felt. And even though it felt good at the time, but now that you're in recovery, you realize it was bad for you. I tried to replace that feeling with something good, or at least different, in my own brain. So I was training my brain. I was taking my brain to the gym and, working it out a little bit. And I think that, if you apply that also, if you go to the gym and you get on a treadmill, or if you're going to lose weight, right? Well, the same, none of that's going to happen. You're just going to sit on the couch and get bigger if you don't go do that. and the same type of logic applies to recovery. And it's one of those things, guys, that we just overlook it. It's actually even part of a business model most of the time. You got to be moving forward. If you're not moving forward, you're getting left behind, is what basically how they teach it. And it's really, seriously, it does. I know it sounds semantical to kind of split words and all those kinds of things, but it's true. It really is. And you're only going to get as far as you want to go. And that's, and I mean, truthfully want to go, not just say, hey, I want to get there. I'm talking about true effort, something that, most of the time, most of us, if we set a goal for ourselves, we'll typically get there. Might take us a minute, but we'll get there. If you're giving an honest effort, and that's where it comes in. It has to be honest to yourself first and foremost. And as soon as you can learn to do that, my gosh, the battle gets so much easier. If you can be honest with yourself, because I don't know about you guys, but I've lied to myself for years. I told myself, I ain't got a problem. I ain't got no problem. I'm fine. Nobody even knows. And I keep moving on with that mindset. As soon as I realized and I was honest with myself, that's when things started. At first, they look like they're getting harder, but no, they're going to become easier after a while. You just got to relearn. And I've been going back to this a lot lately. Remember that when you were in your addiction, that is fake happiness. You have to understand that. Yeah, it's fake. It's not real. You're not supposed to feel that way. Your body is not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be able just to automatically give you something to immediately make you extremely happy and not care about anything else. I know it sounds all, euphoria and stuff, but it's, for that however long that you catch that little bit of a high. But as we know, the longer you get into addiction, it no longer becomes about getting high. It's about getting normal. And, you're chasing it. It's just it's a bad road to go back down. And from my point of view, as far as I've been in recovery, I've started to forget certain things. Like how certain things felt. How certain things, I caught myself because, although replacing those memories is a great thing, that's memories. But what I'm saying is I forgot at some level that was some of the stuff I was feeling back then was bad. And I would catch myself, thinking about it the wrong way. And, it's like our channel here in the chat room and all that. It really helps bring my mind back to center and say, hey, listen, just because you're that far removed from it does not mean it can't grab you and suck you right back in. So you got to know what you're looking for. And don't forget that part of it. Remembering how bad something felt could be a very good thing for you. When you start thinking about your addiction, think about the chase. Okay? We all hated the chase. As soon as you take your drug of choice, what happens? Your mind immediately goes to, hey, where am I going to get my next one? Where's this? Where's this coming from? And Tommy spoke about this a minute ago, about, when you go to the pharmacy and, oh my gosh, the medicine's not there. Me and him had this conversation, was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was the day before, but that actually happened to me this week. And that's probably why we're talking about it now. This kind of brought it to our mind. And, so I go to my pharmacy to get my Suboxone, and I call out there and my prescription wasn't there. And I thought, man, when that happens to somebody that's in recovery, like Tommy said, you go directly to the worst thing possible. So my mind went, hey, did they kick me out of my recovery, or did my insurance quit paying? Did my doctor die? you know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's not, well, maybe I should just call out there and, we'll give them a chance to fix this. That never even crossed my mind, to the point where it ruined me all day long until things were figured out. And that is a thing that I don't know that I'll ever get over that kind of a thing. I'm working towards that, but I have no disillusion that might always be how I think about things when it comes to that. It's just I have to learn how to, like Tommy said, cope with it. Even though my brain goes straight there, well, when it's in process of getting there, if I can recognize that's what I'm doing, I can pivot and at least try to throw something in there to sideswipe all that bad. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Because you're never going to stop all the bad thoughts. You just got to learn how to cope. Cope with a little bit of it, deflect some of it, use all the good things that you can to kind of replace it. And I know that was a lot said, but honestly, this is a very, very important subject that not a whole lot of people even discuss. They don't like talking about it because it's a hard thing. This is a hard part of recovery. Getting past that specific point. It really is. In my opinion, it's one of the hardest things to overcome is that negative mindset that just immediately, you don't even know it's happening until, I literally lost my breath when that pharmacist said, hey, the prescription's not here.
Oh, yeah.
My wife was standing there and she's like, she could tell because my face just went like, I know she knew something was up. I didn't have to say anything. So I know that I was reacting that way, not only in my head, but physically. My body was stressed immediately. And so that tells me that I still have a lot of work to do. I do. And that's what we're doing. And again, I have to say it. This is not a normal conversation that most people will have out in the open. But that's what's different about us, and that's why we can help each other so well. Because we understand. We're over here doing what we're supposed to try to be doing, and, sometimes we're going to fail, sometimes we're going to just completely screw it all up, but at the end of the day, everybody else is going to be lifting us up, and we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine, and we're going to get better for it and stronger. Just like going to the gym, working your body out, you get stronger. Same thing with your brain. Same thing with your emotions. All of it. So, yeah, sorry. That was a pretty long rant, I guess.
No, you're good. You're good. I think that's it's all super legit. And if it's like you said, you're gonna stumble. There's gonna be, if you think you're gonna pick this stuff up, once again, it's like if you think you're gonna rebuild bridges and not have anybody come at you a little bit sideways. Don't be naive about any of this. And if you think that as you're starting to take on these issues, if you don't think you're going to stumble a little bit, well, then you're fooling yourself. And that's, don't do it. Just know that if you're moving forward, you catch one on the side of the arm as you're going forward, you're still moving forward. You go down to one knee, you fall flat on your face. If you get up and dust yourself off and keep walking, I'm not putting anybody here on blast, but anybody that's been on the boat for any length of time could go boom, 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 and rip off 5 names of people who have come here and said, hey, I relapsed. Hey, I relapsed. Hey, I relapsed. Some of them 3 and 4 times. No one here ever picks on anyone for it because that's not how we roll. We all know what it means. If you're coming here and you're admitting that you stumbled, you're still moving forward. In fact, you're really moving forward. You're developing honesty, which is one of the biggest problems that that addicts have is coming to grips with the fact that they've got to be an honest person if they're going to be part of a new world and a new life. If you're doing that, you're moving forward. That's just awesome.
Honesty is such a big thing, guys. It really is. And like I said earlier, it most definitely starts with you. It can't start anywhere else. And like I said, don't get down on yourself either, especially like in situations. I just had, as a matter of fact, I might have even said it in a prior stream. Last week, I was doing something and my wife said something to me, asked me about something. I can't remember what it was about, but I almost immediately started to lie about something for no freaking reason. And I stopped myself because I don't do that. It's something that I've prided myself on since I've gotten sober and got into recovery. That is, if I had to pick one thing that you have to do, that's probably it. You have to be honest, because I think really that any other thing that happens after that, really goes back to that same foundation of being honest with whatever you're talking about, being honest to the point of brutality to yourself. I don't care how bad it makes you feel to be honest with yourself. You got to do it. You just have to. And let me tell you something. As soon as you start being honest with yourself, you're going to start being honest with everybody around you. And what does that do? That builds trust back. Starts building those bridges back. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time. If I had to put a time limit on just my personal situation, it was probably 4 or 5 years to where I got probably comfortable enough to where my wife wouldn't question me if I had cash in my wallet. Because that's one of the things that most people that have never been in any kind of addiction, well, what's the big deal about having cash in your wallet? Well, that's an easy way to go get your drug of choice without nobody knowing it. That's why that was an issue, right? And I didn't even realize it was an issue until, guess what? It was an issue. You know what I mean? So I understand when people ask, well, why is it a big deal? Well, I understand why you're asking that, so let me tell you why, that kind of a thing. But it really was about that long before my wife quit asking me, how much money you got in your wallet, and I know that it sucks to sit there and have to wait on that trust to be there. Even though you're being 100%, you have to cut your loved ones some slack. They don't understand it completely. They can't get there until, again, they do get there. And I promise you, they will. They will get there. That's one thing that it may take, and the time frame's different for everybody. Not only us in addiction or recovery, but it's the family around us and our friends. They all have their time limit and when they're really going to come back around to trust you enough to, and like I said, guys, the trust is probably 95% there with me and my wife. I don't know that it's ever going to get 100% again. I think I might have ruined that, when I was doing all my stuff, but you can get pretty close. So just don't, it's hard not to get offended, but realize if you start feeling offended when your loved one asks you questions or whatever about that, realize they're really trying to trust you the most that they can. If they didn't trust you like that, guess what? They wouldn't ask. They wouldn't ask because they would already know the answer. So that's kind of what I'm saying. And I know that's a big subject and it's a thing that takes so long, but I think it's one of the foundational blocks of being successful here. I really do.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It all starts with honesty. Vicky Brooke, good to see you here. Jay Houston, really glad to see you here. If you want to reach out, send me an email at CaptainTommyScoville@gmail.com. It's CaptainTommyScoville@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to Mark. Both of us have emails in the Dropbox. So hit the Dropbox, check that out. The link to the Facebook page is also there. So Mark Pyers. Mark, an honor to have you here, my friend. Love the channel.
Love you, brother.
Love the channel.
Love you, Mark.
Yep, good to see Mark here. That's exciting. And to everybody tonight, it's a good crew. We really had a good crew, a good discussion. I really appreciate all of you. Tomorrow is my last day here in this part of the country, and then I will be heading back home. When that happens, hey, Amy, good to see you. When that happens, I will be working with Mark to get the New Year's resolutions for the boat all in order so that we're ready to roll. There he is. Mark, good to see you. Love Mark Pyers. People, if you haven't checked out that channel, you can go over there and bring anyone you want. You're never going to hear anything or see anything over there that's going to be objectionable. And he's a very talented individual. The guy can
solid positivity, man.
And yeah, he just goes. He literally is he's a one-man show, and it's absolutely amazing. It really is. And it'll make you laugh really hard, which is always a good thing, especially for those in recovery. So I want to thank each and every one of you. We're at the top of the old witching hour. So as they say in broadcasting, we're coming up on a hard break. So at this point, hey, Alan Ballantyne, didn't see you there earlier. Love you, Alan. Really, Alan's one of my favorites.
CW,
I know I say that about everybody.
Yep.
I know I say that about everybody, but Kathy, you're in my thoughts and prayers. I hope the wrist is doing better, Kathy. I'm glad that you're here. I really am. I know that you're hurting. Don't type too much. I know that you're going through it. People, if you have not joined the Facebook page, please go over there and do that. The fun never ends. If you head on over to the Facebook page, you can go over there and keep this party going, so to speak. You know what? Really want to thank each and every person who is coming here. The numbers continue to grow, and it just says a lot about all of you people in the crew and what you're doing to make this boat so unique. I am. Who am I? I am Captain Tommy Scoble. Between now and tomorrow's live feed, which I will be doing at 8 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, that would be Oculi Mortis's Coast. So between now and then, you have one assignment, people. I know you know what that assignment is, right? I want you to reach out, and we want you to try to save somebody. On the other side of the glass, we have
Mark Wages.
Alrighty, people. You have a great evening. Good night.